Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to this video of me doing a walkthrough of my CI/CD pipeline, this GitOps workflow where I've deployed this app on a Kubernetes cluster. So just a quick overview. I'm using a ArgoCD for my GitOps workflow, and I'll be using minikube for my cluster, and then just GitHub Actions for my CI. So that's the premise of the whole video, and now I'll just walk through the process. It's not so much so tutorial, but more of a me doing the things the way I do. First off, I'll start with a little bit about the app. So this is the app. It's a simple issue management app. I built it with Next.js. It's got all the standard things, Typescript, React underneath, and yeah. I'll open this quick little diagram. So here's the app. It's pretty standard, like I said, it's Next.js, and for the database backend, I'm using Supabase. It's a managed Postgres database. It comes with logging and things like reports and security stuff, like row level security. Again, it's just nice to have a managed database because that way I don't have to do a whole lot of configurations and things. So, so Supabase for that. For user authentication, I'm using Auth0 with Google OAuth. So there's like a Google sign-in, which you can see right here. There's that Google sign-in. So yeah, that's the whole layout of the app. And since it's so simple, and as far as like runtime environment, I only needed the node. So I was able to basically Dockerize this app without having to do Docker compose and have, multiple service on my end. So that was very convenient. And so I will now just walk through the Dockerfile a little bit, which is right here. Oh, wow. That's a first time for me seeing this a little weird. Yeah. Okay. So here's the Dockerfile. It is also pretty standard. It's a multi-stage build, and it's building the production build. So something I do want to point out is, like, before I had the multi-stage and this production quote-unquote build, my Docker image was around 800 megabytes. And I think that was because of it was copying all the node modules, which is, again, not cool. But there's this one configuration with Next. I want to showcase that real quick. It's this thing right here, output standalone. It's pretty simple. It just, makes sure to copy only the functions, the modules from the node modules that are being used in the app. And then that way it's just optimized that way. Basically, after all these optimizations, the multi-stage build, the next optimization, and doing a production build, my final image was around I'm gonna make that wide so that way it's all one-liner. So this was the first image after all the optimizations, 166 megabytes. And that's the uncompressed size. And if I go to my Docker Hub, and by the way, I pushed the image to a private repository. Here was my first build, which was 55. And here's a build that was CI part 55. So yeah, from 800 to 50, it's a, really nice change. So, right, that's my quote unquote Docker build. I Dockerized the app and then I pushed it to the Docker Hub. Now I want to talk a little bit about the CI pipeline. So here's my issue app in my public GitHub repository. So the thing with the CI pipeline is, like, if I make any changes and I push it to my main branch, it triggers a CI pipeline. And I want to quickly showcase that here. So it triggers a CI pipeline. I'll start from the beginning. So here's me, the user. Just do it large, right? So here's me. Here's me, the user. Make changes, and then I push it to GitHub. It's got to be on the main branch. if I do all these things, then it triggers. All right. So if I make a change onto my issue app and push it to GitHub and it's on the main branch, then it triggers, first of all, a Docker build. And then it also pushes the image to Docker Hub. Then it triggers another repository where it has some more GitHub actions. So in this one, which is the CDK8 repository. So basically, this is the repository that holds my CDK8 code. And I'll go over CDK8's code in a little bit. So basically, CDK8, which is similar to AWS's CDK, it generates the Kubernetes YAML. The AWS CDK generates CloudFormation YAML, but this one does K8's Kubernetes. So if I go back to my diagram, basically that will trigger the CDK8's repository to generate the CDK8's YAML or Kubernetes YAML. Then it uploads that YAML onto another Git repository, which is private. Now, this is the fun part. This is my CD part where I have ArgoCD deployed onto my cluster. And ArgoCD looks at that private repository. And then based on the YAML there, it builds the or deploys the application, the Kubernetes cluster here, or the Kubernetes resources onto the cluster. So now I'm going to quickly go ahead and log into my environments. So I use devcontainers. It's really nice, very convenient. If I want to do something, I can just spin up a container. And if I'm done messing around, I can just delete the container. I don't have to worry about installing softwares or anything like that. I'll get into my reasonings for why I'm using minikube and not AWS EKS or GKS or whatever. So with minikube, it's super easy for me. I can just spin up a minikube cluster, and I always like to do runtime. Well, it's container runtime equals container D, and I'll do CPU 6, and then memory as 6144. Okay. I forgot to do minikube start. Okay, right. So I like to do minikube because it's super fast for me to spin up a container, or I like to do minikube because it's super fast for me to spin up a cluster compared to AWS, where I'm going to have to configure the IAMs and then the networking rules so it can connect to my, local environment here. And then it also takes quite a bit of time, like 2-3 minutes to spin up a cluster. And then there's the, thing about it costs money. So, and I know there's also, what is this called? EKS cluster or EKS CTL that I could use to start a AWS EKS pretty quickly with YAMLs. But anyway, like I said, because it's free for me to do it this way and it's faster, so I prefer it this way. So right, while it's starting, I want to quickly explain what the CDK8's code does. So here's my CDK8's repository. It's public. So the main file is this, the main.ts. So CDK8's, it has 3 levels of constructs. Constructs are basically all the Kubernetes objects. So based on what I know, it's like L0 is like a one-to-one with the Kubernetes API, where I will write in code in here where it's like, what is the kind of the resource, the metadata, the labels, and all that stuff. But then there's L1, which I have an example here. So L1 has these APIs, which is like kube service account or kube secret and stuff. And then it has some, code completion where I could type in the things that it expects. And then layer 2 is where a lot of the defaults, or where the API just takes over. So here I'll specify the things based on the specifics that I want. And with L2, it'll add a whole bunch of defaults that are not there. So for example, things like strategy of updates, things like resources, security context, and all that stuff. These are things that I did not define in my code. It just adds in the default values. I could change it if I wanted to, but anyway. So that's what the L2 construct does. So now I just want to explain a little bit about the Kubernetes resources that I'm going to create to deploy my app. It's a pretty simple one. So there's first of all a namespace here. So I have two examples, one with namespace and one without. So this is the one with namespace where I define a namespace, and the namespace label is basically the namespace. So I have the namespace defined, and then I have a Docker secret, which comes from a JSON file. And then a deployment with 2 replicas, and it uses the image from my app, which I built earlier, put it on my Docker Hub. So yeah, and then a service to expose the deployment. So that's a pretty simple definition, and here's the function to create the YAML. So that's my simple quote-unquote CDK code to generate the resources for Kubernetes for the app. So now if I go back here and then I do get all -a. So here's my little cluster. It's brand new. There's not a whole lot of things. So first thing I want to do is go ahead and deploy ArgoCD. So one of the first things to do is I have to create a namespace. And if I do get namespaces, there is none. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and create the namespace. There we go. And this is pretty nice. They have the install command all in this one install.yaml, and I did check that file. It was like, I don't know, 10,000 lines or something. And it does create a whole bunch of things, RBACs and this and that. So yeah, now I'll do ArgoCD. So right, it's the first time it's just installed the things. It's gonna take a little bit. So while that is happening, now I want to explain the Argo project that I have. So here's the Argo project. And like I earlier said, I have no namespace defined here because I defined my namespace in the YAML. Anyway, so here's the Argo project. It's a very basic one. It looks at that private repository, and the desired YAMLs are in the directory called app, and it will deploy into this default server, which is basically the server where, or basically the cluster where ArgoCD is at, and that's this one. And it's got the basic prune true, self-heal true, which means it's going to, keep it close to the desired state. So now if I'll do that again, everything should be running perfect. Now I want to log into my Argo server or ArgoCD server. So what I'm going to do is port forward ArgoCD and then services, ArgoCD server, and then I'm going to use 443, and then I'll do it on 3000. All right, so that's there. Okay, another thing I'll have to do, since this is my first time running ArgoCD right now, I'm gonna have to get the password. So for that, I have here get secrets from ArgoCD namespace, and this is the one I'll have to use. So I'll do that, ArgoCD initial, and then I'll put that out in a YAML. All right, so this is the one I gotta use, and I'll just do it right here. Okay, I got that. I'm just gonna copy that from here. All right, while I'm here, I'll quickly update my password just because I don't want to copy paste things. All right, so now that that's part, now that that part's done, I'm just going to log in with the new password, and then here it is. It's a blank slate. Now, since the repository where this Argo project is going to connect to is a private repository, I'm going to have to and I want to basically connect with SSH. So I'm going to have to deploy a SSH secret onto my cluster so that it knows to use that to connect to the repository. So if I do kget secrets and then for all, there's no secret that related to this repository. So one of the first things I'll have to do, and that's something related to my dev container, which is that I'm going to have to create the key. So one thing about dev containers is like if I rebuild the container, which I've done in this case, it deletes all of my user contents. So my keys are gone, but that's fine. I can always create a new one. Now there are ways to bind this folder, to mount a folder with it, so that way the content persists. Or another way, which I could have done, which is to copy those files somewhere and then just use a script like this one to copy the files. But in this case, it's just easier for me to create those. So I'll do that. I'll start a SSH agent. All right, and then I'll do the SSH keygen for algorithm. I'll use the elliptical one, and then for my comment, I'll put my GitHub user ID, something I made years ago, and then I'll put the file. Just gonna call it ArgoCD. Do I want the passphrase? If I do add something here, then I'm gonna have to also add it to my secret file that I'll deploy here. It'll be very simple. It'll be just a passphrase like that, but I don't want to, so I'll skip that. And it's done. Now I'll just so this is the secret that I'm going to have to deploy on my cluster so that ArgoCD can use it. And here you'll notice, wait, it's also in the namespace ArgoCD, and then this label helps it recognize it. So I'm gonna save that. Another thing I got to do is to deploy the public key. I'll use that and put it on my GitHub, which is here. I'm gonna go to settings. I'm gonna go to deploy keys. There's one already, but I'm going to delete that and then restart the whole process. All right, so now with all that stuff done, I also have to, apply this file, which is, all right. Now that all of that stuff is done, if I, create this project in my cluster, basically if I use this ArgoCD project, it should be able to connect. I could create or apply, it's the same thing, at least in this case, so I'm just gonna apply. So while this is happening, which if I do namespace, it's creating the first thing. And then if I go back to my Argo applications, here we go. So you can see it's, it's doing exactly as expected. So the YAML has the first part, which is to create a namespace, which it is doing here. And then create all the deployments and all that stuff. And everything is looking good, so it's cool. Now I want to see what image does it use here. So it's using 2.1. Okay. All right, so the application is here, it's running, and one of the things that's quote unquote the power of ArgoCD or a GitOps workflow is like it was super easy for me to create the project just by deploying this YAML file, and it's just as easy for me to delete this just by deleting that. And it's saying it's being deleted, which is going to take a second, and there we go. Now, if I run that kget all in my issue namespace, well, it doesn't even have the issue namespace because it created the namespace based on the YAML. So it's not here anymore and the project's gone. Well, it's just a little bit of, you know, whatever. All right, the project's gone. So that was pretty easy to do that. And now I can restart the project. It's going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to apply again. Now I want to do a little bit of demo of the app. So it's running once again. If I go to applications and everything is healthy, it's all good. And like I said earlier, there is a service that exposes the deployment. So I'm just going to do kget services. And the thing is this. All right, so it's on 80. So I'm just going to do port forward. And then I'm going to have to specify the namespace services. And it's just a 1. And let's just do it at 4001 just to be a little bit, you know, different. So I'm just going to go back here and then I'll do just do 4001. All right, so here's my app. Here's a sign in. If I do sign in with Google, yeah, please accept it. Oh, okay. What's happening is it's redirecting to 3000, which was set on the app. And sometimes that's just like that. Also, it's not HTTPS, it's the other one. There we go. So for the logging in, yeah, I should just put my thing. Instead of ArgoCD running at 3000, I should do this app at 3000. You know what? Why don't I do that? Why don't I do that? Just to see if that actually makes a difference. It should, but we will see. So I'll run this on 4000 and I'll run my app on 3000. So there's my app. I'm gonna do a login. And here we go. It's logged in, all good to go. I don't know why it redirected me to new, but anyway, here I am. And if I do I'm gonna have to do a 4000. It might prompt me to log in. We shall find out. It did not. Perfect. So where was I? This is the app. If I look at all these links, everything is working. There is a little bit of caching issue here, something I'll look into later. There's a lot of things I could improve on this app, but that's for later. Anyway, so things are working, and since I'm here, I guess I could just go ahead and make a new issue just to mark this, which is May 30th, 12 p.m. Woo! Issue from minikube. Minikuber. All right, here we go. So is that here? I can find it out on this Supabase UI thing. Is it here? Yes, it is. And then if I go into my issue app and then let's just sort it. There we go. Here it is. Perfect. Can I assign it to someone else? Yes, I can. And if I do that, then that will change this assign to user ID. The app is working. Now I want to showcase a little bit of the CI. And for that, I'll just explain this thing again. So for the CI pipeline, any changes I make to my issue full stack app, and as long as I push it on the main branch, basically it's getting triggered based on any changes on the main branch. Then it will trigger a whole bunch of other CI things, and eventually it will end up with a new YAML file which will be uploaded here. So for that, I'm just going to go ahead get into my issue app thing. So right, this is the folder where the issue app is at. So for now, let's just say I want to, where is my app again? Well, that's on my app. Here's my app. So let's just say I'm just gonna change the dashboard thing. Okay. Sometimes it's a little bit finicky. Wait, did it lose? Oh yeah. That's why I terminated the connection. So that's why. Okay. So let's just say I want to change this dashboard to something else or something in here. If I look at my app here, I know navbar has the content for that. Just call it home for now. And yeah, it's gonna complain because I don't have the node modules here. I'm just making changes and then straight up building it. Anyway, so if I do I'll quickly commit that as a to home. Just call it CI. All right, so I guess I could go over the workflow a little bit just to explain what I'm doing with CI. So all of my things are in the GitHub's Actions secrets, so it's using that to pull on those things. Like I said, it builds based on the main branch. Any changes with the main branch. So another thing I have to do here is, so this is the thing where it updates the image, but I'm using a very funny way of updating the image. So I have this file called release.info. So if I make any kind of changes with the file here and I want to update the Docker image, it's going to look at this file. And let's just call it 2.2 for now. Screw it, I'm gonna call it 3. So it's gonna look at this file and update the image number based off of this thing here, version 3. So I'll go back to my workflow file. So it's gonna look at that and then use that to update the image, which you can see here. There's my Docker Hub name, the name of the image, and then the version number. So there's that, and then I'm also injecting the environment variables into my build file. So there's that, and then the second job of this workflow file is to update the CDK8 repository, which is this one. So the main thing it does is it just gets into this main.ts file and then updates the image tag right here. So that's all it does with this job. Once again, it checks out the current repository, which is the issue app repository, this one, gets the version number, and then does the update on the CDK's repository. So yeah, that's what that file does. So now if I git push, well, I should not git push because I should also add this thing, the release 3. Let's just call it release 3. All right, now I should push. So we shall find out what it does. I have a little bit of inkling what it should do, but we shall see. So, and there's a lot of testing that I had to do to get it to work, but here we are. So it's gonna do that, and then eventually it should end up here with the new YAML. So it's a waiting game, we'll see. Well, I guess while we wait here, I could also explain some of the things with the CDK8 GitHub CI. So for that, I'll just open this here. So right, it receives that thing and then that triggers a build here. Also, here's something historical. I never ended up changing the branch name from master to main, and all the new GitHub repos now come with a main branch instead of master. So there's a little bit of history. So here, instead of main, it's on master. It again checks out this repository and then use Docker, the secret. So basically this is the Docker secret so that it could build the Docker secret. I know I just said Docker secret twice, but like basically this is the Docker login personal access token, which is stored in this JSON file. So it uses that to create the Docker secret Kubernetes object. So there's that. And then because this is a CDK8 file, I have to install the CDK8 CLI, and there's that. And it just builds the CDK8's synth with our, and then it just builds the Kubernetes YAML using CDK8 synth, which also comes from this thing right here, npm run build. And then yeah, I just copy that YAML using GitHub artifacts. So I upload it first, and then I download it onto the next job, and then I paste that into the app directory. So depending on what I want, I could change this script, but as of right now, that's where it's at. So let's see if it was successful. So that part was, and here we go. Here's my main.ts with 3, perfect. And this should have a job running. There we go. This is running the job. So if this job completes, then I should have the final YAML with 3 on my private repository, which is here. And so what all that means is, where's my app? So the app is running, yeah. It should, yeah, it just updated it. I just saw it. So this got updated just a second ago, probably. Yeah. And with that, the deployment changed to 3. So it's creating all these things and deleting this and that. All right, so the pods have been updated, looks like. So now if I go here on my app, it should not be dashboard anymore. Okay, I might have to, I think it lost the connection. Yeah. And that's just something with port forward. I could use a load balancer and all those things, but I want to keep it simple for now. And now it says home. Perfect. So that's the CI/CD complete end-to-end type of stuff. Okay. So now I want to showcase the other thing with ArgoCD here. So that was my project where the namespace was defined in the YAML. Now I have another example which uses a different thing. So I'll just get out of here. I'll delete this project for now. Okay, so that project is gone, and now I want to showcase a different Argo project. This ArgoCD project has one difference compared to the last one, and this one's called a namespace Argo project. So I'll open this on the side, and then I can compare the two. So it's basically the same, except now this one has a namespace. So basically, when I deploy this namespace Argo project.yaml on my cluster, it's going to create a namespace, which is this namespace, issue namespace ArgoCD. Now, the old project, I did not define a namespace in the YAML. Instead, the namespace was defined in the YAML that it was going to look at in the GitHub repository, and that was the process. But in this case, if I feel like I should show the repository first. So here is the repository, and it's going to look at app.ns, which is app namespace, and it's going to look at this YAML file. So app.ns, and it's going to deploy that YAML file in this issue namespace thing. So if everything goes right, I'll just go ahead and do this, apply -fns. So it's going to deploy all of these in this namespace. So it's going to first create a secret, a deployment, and a service that exposes that deployment. So these 3 Kubernetes objects in this namespace. So if I do get all in that namespace, issue namespace ArgoCD, I should have that. Now, the deployment has a replica set, which has 2 pods, and those are the 2 pods right here. And here's this, and then here's the deployment, and here's the service. It doesn't show the secret when you do get all, but it's there. So now if I go here, it is running, it is healthy, perfect. So these are the main three things that the project created. Now, again, the one thing I'm trying to stress here is that ArgoCD, the project ArgoCD here, created the namespace. So now what will happen? I mean, I know what's going to happen, but like, let me go ahead and do it anyway. Let me run a test pod in this ArgoCD namespace, which is issue namespace ArgoCD that comes from here. And then just say for image, I'm going to use Nginx. Okay, so now if I do kget all in this namespace, it's going to have that test pod and it's running. But ArgoCD will not recognize that there's a foreign pod that's running here. If I refresh, it's still like, it's got the YAML definitions from the GitHub repository, but not the new foreign pod. And I kind of understand why it is like that, but again, I wish there was a configuration where I could modify ArgoCD to recognize that. Now, based on the documentations, like how ArgoCD tracks any resources based on a label. So what do I mean by that? Well, let me go ahead and get a deployment from the namespace ArgoCD and then output that onto a YAML. So if I look at the YAML here, this label right here, well, this is going to match label to get in here, but like this label. So this is the label which, helps ArgoCD recognize resources. So it has this app.kubernetes, and then the name of the ArgoCD project. In this case, the name of the ArgoCD project is issue namespace. So that's what it's using to identify the resources in here. Another thing that's different in this one and the last one, well, the NS Argo project and the Argo project that I deployed earlier. Another thing that's different here is prune. Prune is set to false, whereas it was true here. So basically, if I'm able to make ArgoCD recognize something that's not part of the YAML that's here on the GitHub, basically a Kubernetes object that's not part of the desired state, it's not going to delete it, it's just going to be out of sync. So now I'm going to insert that label so that ArgoCD can recognize the pod. And for that, I'm going to do set nocp here, and then insert. So what I'm going to do is just copy the stuff from here. It has got to have that label somewhere here. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to copy that, paste it, and then save it. All right, now if I do kget pods -n issue, it's still running. And then if I come to my ArgoCD cluster right here, you can see it's out of sync. Sometimes I just got to do this to see the pod here. Well, here it is. So this thing is now out of sync. Now, that is the only way where ArgoCD can track a resource with that label. There are other methods based on the documentation. So based on the documentation, there's that label, which it uses by default, and there's custom labels as well as annotations, which can be used to track. But basically, it's up to the user to add those labels or annotations for ArgoCD to even track. And I kind of sort of get it. Like, what if I want to deploy Prometheus monitoring or some kind of something that's like a sidecar or like an exporter in this, namespace. I don't want ArgoCD to, be quote unquote out of sync or delete those resources. So I get that. But once again, I wish there were options to, label those resources as protect or don't delete, or, like this is part of a monitoring stack or something. yeah, just something like that. Because the one thing that I would like to do is like, monitor the namespace that ArgoCD creates. Basically, I want to use the ArgoCD UI as a viewpoint of the whole namespace in a broad way and see all the things that are in here. Because I think this UI looks pretty nice, and it's a nice way to look at the resources from a bird's eye view. But yeah, maybe there is a way to do it. Maybe there's something that maybe there's something out there that can do it or make ArgoCD do it. But that's my 2 cents, and that's it.